right on the heels of learning that you're going to lose this guy, which wasn't a big loss because you feel pretty good about your wide receiver room, we get the absolute fantastic news that the Seattle Seahawks have grabbed, stolen, pilfered, plundered from the Los Angeles Rams, Pooh Paul Jr. This is a guy from a lot of people's accounts that was very well graded coming out of this draft. I think he had a lot of variance in what people saw of him, from those that really loved him, and then those that were just kind of felt like, oh, he's okay, he's fine. Part of course, that very talented Mississippi defense that we now have two players from, Jared Ivey and Pooh Paul. So maybe Jared Ivey doing us a bit of a solid on this one, saying, hey, come out to Seattle, man. They don't love you in LA. They'll love you in Seattle. And this is a guy that is a 5th round pick for the Rams, so no just little small loss for them on this one. A guy that even people like well-respected Brett Coleman had Pooh Paul as a top 32 type player coming to the draft. He interviewed him and he was just blown away by this kid. And he's a guy that I just don't quite understand, quite frankly, why the Rams are letting him go in this situation. Now, it's kind of, I think, if you really want to break it down to two things that I'm making a guess on here, which is the team wants to go with Raider off the jump because they probably didn't feel like Paul was ready to be an instantaneous starter and take on all the duties of being the green dot helmet guy, essentially kind of the leader on that defense. They trust in Raider probably a little bit more. Some of this is Dolak, the kid that they got out of Buffalo, and it kind of maybe came down to one or the other between him and Pooh Paul Jr. But you were able to snag him here, and this is a huge get for your Seattle Seahawks, who need quality depth here at the inside linebacker position, especially with Tyrese Knight's recent injury, and especially knowing Ernest Jones coming off an injury and offseason surgery himself. When you look at Pooh Paul and how he performed last year in the college football, and this is just the PFF marker, but I'm going to try to show you another thing here too to get you guys a little bit hyped up on this one. You can see that he was technically rated the 18th highest inside linebacker by PFF in college football last year. What you'll notice though is that when you see there's not number 1 on there, there's not number 4, number 5 on there, that's because they're removing the sample size inside linebackers. You only played 100 snaps. Well, maybe you're the 4th highest rated PFF inside linebacker, but you haven't played kind of enough snaps to really be a good gauge on where you're at your play. So they kind of will push those out for the guys that have played a lot more football and have been out on the field. And as you can see with Paul, all the way down the line, from just his total defensive score to run defense to pass rush to coverage, all of that stuff very well graded all across the line for him last year with Ole Miss. This is not merely, to me, you're just grabbing some guy who's just an also-ran, you're going to have him off the roster tomorrow, here today, gone tomorrow kind of guy. This is a guy that's a really big-time quality pickup for your Seahawks that I think is going to end up remaining on this roster because it just seems like he's been good wherever he's at on this. Another one that shows you a little bit of what he did last year as well. This is 2024 inside linebacker tackling. So on one side, you got the missed tackle rate. The lower is the worse you are on that. So you're 25, you're bad on that with the missed tackle rate. You get up into the highs, you're in a good spot as far as low missed tackle rate, and then your stop rate. So how often do you lose the tackles? How often do you actually make the stop? And if you look here on this chart, you'll notice probably for some of you, you should be seeing a lot of very familiar names in here, like Danny Stutzman and Carson Schweisinger and Smail Mondon and Jack Kaiser, all guys drafted in this last draft, Teddy Buchanan, Jeffrey Bossa in there as well. And if you look up in the high right side corner, in the best place to be on this particular chart, you will notice Pooh Paul Jr. just above first round pick Jihad Campbell. A lot of good statistics with this kid that will show you from last year and what he did with Ole Miss that this is a true player and this guy can roll. And this is not just a guy that disappointed for the Rams, didn't show out for the Rams, was horrible in camp, was in over his head, wasn't prepared or ready to go. Quite the opposite, because when we look at the Rams' defensive grades here throughout the preseason, you can see that Pooh Paul was the 11th highest graded player on defense for your Los Angeles Rams with a 66.3 grade. Tackling numbers were a little bit tough on him on that side of it, and it wasn't used a lot as a pass rusher. He only had about 5 pass rush snaps technically. That's big time sample size there, but still not badly graded there. You'll see him right there at about number 11th there on the ranking here that I'm showing you with this chart. So even when he came to become a pro, he was still playing pretty well. And so you do come back to maybe asking me, well, Brandon, why'd they let him go? Why'd they release this guy? Well, why would they do that? And I don't have as much of a good, clear answer for you. It felt like at the time when the Rams were able to get Pooh Paul in the 5th round, that was kind of a little bit of a steal for them for where you're taking him. I think you understand a little bit of why he drops and that, there is some size limitations here. He is a little bit lighter. He is a little bit smaller than what you would look for at inside linebacker position. But the NFL's got a pretty rich history with undersized inside linebackers who are super quick, super fast, who are very instinctive, natural leaders. These guys can find their way in the NFL. We go from guys from London Fletcher to Ivan Pace, that the kid that Minnesota has out there is their starting inside linebacker, even up into this day. There's a history to this. There's guys that can make it work at that size. So Chris Paul, big time addition here that you're bringing in off the Rams, and then you're hurting the Rams a little bit at the same time. So it's a little bit of a 1-2 there, which makes it feel even a little bit better. But this is a big time get for your Seattle Seahawks. The Rams were absolutely hoping that they could just kind of, hey, no, we cut him, but he's just going to go to the practice squad. Don't worry about it. No, we just cut him. He's not even really, he's going to be barely out there for just like 5 minutes on the open market. And then we're just going to bring him right to the practice squad. He's just barely going to be out. Why'd you take him? Why'd you take him? Why'd you take him? He's on the market. Sorry, put him on the market. So they wanted to put him on that practice squad. That was the intention for them. Love this move. Absolutely a home run here from the Seattle Seahawks perspective all the way around.